Hi, I'm Mr. Miyagi and this is Mr. Miyagi's Workshop. Well, today we're continuing on with that CB350. But today we're going to work on its starter. I know you guys, some of you guys delete these because you can't get them to work and stuff, so I thought I'd go over pretty much how to fix them and make sure they're working properly. So let's get to it. All right, first things first, we got to take this thing apart. One thing when you're using those is you want a number 3 screwdriver head to take these apart, because it works much better on fitting in the groove there. There we go. All right. And I'll be lazy here because I kind of like the way I like to do this stuff. All right, so these are off. Now we need a small tapping hammer. Just tap that a little bit. So this front just pops right off of there. There's another plate in here that we have to take out. But the easiest thing is to go ahead and pull this back one off. And you got to kind of work at it a little bit. Sometimes they come off and easy and sometimes they don't, like this one. You can see that there's a lot of crust and stuff in there, and those are pretty wore down. So what we want to do, need to disconnect this plate right here, and that screw was loose. So that meant that may have not been getting all the proper juice to it. That's another thing you got to kind of look out for. So that comes off. And now this plate comes off. And be sure and put that screw back in there because you don't want to lose it. There it goes. So I can also feel on this, it feels a little bit greasy, so I don't know what's going on here. Now there's also a couple of shims that usually ride on that. Don't lose these. They ride against that little bushing in there. Now this armature should pull out. Tap that forward and this plate will come off. Here again we've got another set of bushings and this. And there's a bronze bushing in here for that to ride in for the shaft. Now this all looks pretty good, except we need to go over these armature points here. The inside of this looks okay, but we have this gasket here that we need to pull out. Because in the kit, the rebuild kit, you'll get another one. So we want to pull that out of there, and we're going to clean that area and scrape this down and clean it out. And then there's an O-ring, a small O-ring on the back side here. But you'll get a new one in the kit. Those come off. And that helps seal these two items together. Looks like it could be a little bit cleaner inside there. And then, of course, this point right here needs to be taken care of. Another thing we want to take care of, we want to pop out these gears, and we should, oh, there's a little clip ring, I forgot about that. The little clip ring that you got to take off, then you can push this out, because you'll also get a brand new seal for this area. And you should clean all of this stuff up, all these items. Oh yeah, there's also this O-ring, so when it slips into the case, and you'll get one of those too in your kit. So I'm going to get my snap ring pliers and we're going to pull that off. Now I picked up these snap ring pliers from, what was it, O'Reilly's. And they're really good because you can switch them from inside or outside pickup here. And they seem to work really well. Sometimes you'll run across something that they won't fit on, but most of the time they'll fit whatever you're working on. There we go, that comes off. There we go. But that gives you a chance to clean all of this stuff up in this plate. Oh, that's the yucky part of this job. Alrighty, let's get to it. Now I just sprayed a little bit of that brake cleaner on this armature here, and you can see that it cleaned it up kind of nice. Now you could use a drill on the end of this and spin it that way, or just take a piece of sandpaper and work on it. But one thing you want to do afterwards is you want to clean out all of these grooves to make sure there's nothing in there contacting this, because these will build up. You don't need anything fancy, just a little scraper will work fine for you. You can see how that just kind of cleans it up. Yeah, I may not have to chuck this one up in the lathe. It looks like it's pretty good. The only thing that a lathe would do is that it would make this more level across there, but I'm just running the sandpaper on here by hand and cleaning up the contacts on it. And that looks pretty good. Now we'll take a little bit of this cleaner. Clean that on there. Maybe do a little bit on the front here too while we're at it. Wipe this armature down. Now I've done another one I'm working on. I was waiting on the parts and such. This one here I chucked up in the lathe. And this one I didn't. I just hand sanded it. And you can see they're pretty darn close. And just looking at siding on that, I don't see any dips or anything. This one is off of a CB360. This is off of a CB350. They're the same starter, in case you're wondering. Okay, I got in here and cleaned up that gasket area. Now, I used a little scraper, this little knife and a razor blade, but I found out also that these little Dremel tools with this little blade, with this little brush on it, work really well for getting in here and cleaning. You got a little divot on here, and that's a lineup for all of this stuff, for like, it shows up on this one here. So I still have to clean this plate up and a few other odds and ends, and this one. Now I've got this looking pretty good. I got all the fields cleaned up inside there. So this is looking good. Now I got to go through and clean up the rest of this stuff. Well, this is all cleaned up nice. I pulled out the old seal that's mounted in there. We're going to put a new one in, but I'm going to put a little grease down in there before we put this seal and everything back in there. And then we have the back unit here all cleaned out. I checked the fit on this. The fit's pretty darn good. Same with the front. So I don't think I'm going to need to change these bushings out. It came with new bushings. This unit wasn't all that wore out, and we had, the rear bushing here. All that. Plus, it also came with the brush springs, which is kind of nice. And of course, the few odds and ends of parts that go with it. But we do have the new seals and also the new O-rings. For people that don't have a lathe, you could use a drill just going on the end there, just for polishing these up. So that's looking really good. And when you've finished sanding that, you definitely want to go through these armature contact points here and clean this up so that you don't short out the contacts on this armature. Wipe it off. I got a little bit of armature cleaner here. I'll wipe that off there. All right, this is pretty much ready to go back together. Okay, so we get this all set up in there. And I've got the new brushes in place here. Now what I've done is I've used, and you'll see it here, I've used the spring to hold those in place so you can set everything in there. And one thing too, you want to keep in mind when you are removing the old brushes is that one doesn't have a cover on it, it's open, and the other one has a protective cover on it. So that definitely goes to the side when you put it together. Let me put it on here. All right, so we'll set this in here. So when this goes in like that. Now that screw and everything will attach to this point here, this contact point. So let's get to that stage right now. Trying to get everything lined up. Oh, I see the problem. I've got a little bend in this, so that needs to be straightened up. Okay, seems to be going together fairly nicely. Kind of get this all lined up. There are some divot points that these need to be in. There's also on this, that fits down inside, but you need to get everything kind of lined up. There we go. Thing drops down in there. So that's your brush plate. That's all set and ready to go. That also has an O-ring, the thin O-ring that goes on the outside of this. So we'll put that on so I don't forget it. All right, so that's down on there. That's good to go. So let's focus on this front section here. We'll put a little grease down in there and we'll get the new seal in place, and then we'll put all this together. So I'm just smearing this grease down inside there. And if you get a little more than you think you need, it's actually better to have a little bit more grease in this area. And then you got a little extra, just wipe it off on the inside there. You're just basically pushing that back down in there so it's good and snug. All right. So now we're going to take this mechanism here and we're going to put a little lubricant on everything so it slides together nicely. Now this may have to be tapped into place. Yes, I think it does. So I'm pushing this back down in place there. Taking my time, double checking things. That feels good. All right, so now we want to put some more grease on here. Lay those on. This is just a good grease, axle grease. What is this? This is multi-vehicle use grease. It's the red stuff. Got it from, one of the auto parts store, I don't know. O'Reilly's or Napa or one of them. All right. We'll spin that around just to see how everything's working here. So this is the cover that goes over this area that we will have a gasket on, one of these, and the other goes on the other side. So now I'm going to put that snap ring back in place. Let me get this down on there so we don't make a total mess out of my block. There we go. And you just want to make sure that that's down and in the groove there. So that front drive mechanism is pretty much all ready to go. So let's put this unit together here. There's two little dash marks on this, and then you have this back one. These all should line up together when you're putting this together. So we're going to put the armature up in place. It goes up in there. And then on the back side of this, right here, now you don't have to get real heavy with the grease on this, but you need to lubricate that area a little bit. So you want to put your shims back in place. Goes on. And then the secondary one, and then we'll just put a little bit more lubricant on there. I think what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of grease down in here for that pivot point. So this should just slide into place. So like I said before, now what we're going to do is we're going to release these bushings. Those just pop down in there. And then this stuff here, you got to make sure that these connectors for the bushing or for the bushings are set in there. Make sure that we're lined up all the way around. Here's your mark across, and there's your other mark, and that should all just kind of go together. It should line up, hopefully. So you want to make sure that that's all slid back into place. Okay, so now, so the larger goes there. We also don't want to forget our bushing, so I want to put just a little bit of tap around that. Slide our bushings down into place. And then we're going to take a little bit of grease on this one shaft bushing here, and we'll slide that down in there. So this also has a divot that it needs to line up on. There's a little notch in the plate, and then there's a little tab that sticks out right there. And then this all pushes together into that unit. Now, the thinner one goes on the outside here. And then, if I remember right, yeah, there's another mark on this one that lines up. So this all kind of goes together as such, drops down in there. And then these line up. Where is it? There's the mark right there. So now we can put our screws in place and then double check how it spins. What I found out here putting this together is that this back gasket that we have is a lot thicker, and I also had to remove the spacer inside there. I left the other two or thinner shims in place, but I'm also using this gasket here on the front. And why I'm doing that is that would be a seal factor there. This would be kind of a double seal, but at this stage, this will just help seal the head unit in place. And now it does fit on there, and it goes on nicely. I've never had that problem before on some of the other starters, but I have read a few little articles that guys having problems putting these starters together, that it binds up because of that one gasket and that one little shim there. When they built these, they had a paper thin gaskets, so they needed that shim and everything to kind of put everything together. So now I can actually turn this thing here, and we can give it a really good test. This isn't a real hot battery, but let's see if it'll spin it. Oh yeah. But I know this one's a hot battery. Oh yeah. So this is back up and working again. So now what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to clean up this outside here a little bit, tape off a lot of these areas, and paint it so that it will look nice on the motor. And then we'll get to the point of mounting this, and I'll show you how to set up the chain and everything. All right, well, this turned out pretty good. Can't forget to put our O-ring on. For inserting these, I just like to put a little bit of lubricant, not a lot, just a little bit around that. So when you slide this into place here on the motor, it slips in nicely. All right, it's going up in there. With the new O-ring on it, sometimes can be a little tough to get those to slide in there. So instead of using regular bolts, I'm using these Allen heads. Why? Because I got them. So we'll put these in. All right. So I'll spin this motor here a little bit. Now this is fairly simple. Put your chain on. One thing you can also check on these is that this is your sprocket clutch, and it should stop if you're pushing it forward. And that's your grab to help spin the motor over. So we'll get this chain on there. And the little sprocket. And it should... Oh! Okay, I've got this kind of lined up. The splines on this one were in a little rough shape, so this gear or sprocket, drive sprocket, is a little tight on the shaft, and I'm trying to get it to slide on. You might run into that situation, I don't know. I'm just going to tap it on place there. Keep working this in. I find that just moving it back and forth will help bring it in. Tap it on there a little bit more. There we go. All right. So just double check. That fits on there snug. I tried it on one of the other starters. I had it slipped right on. So the splines, and I'll show you on this one, these splines on here sometime will get roughed up, especially if you're banging them around in the shop, which that one kind of got banged around a little bit. Okay, with the starter mounted on, the chain on there, we can put this side cover on. Now I ended up having to pull the covering off of the wire cover off the stator wires. It was pretty bad shape. And all I did is I used some shrink wrap on there to clean it up. I pulled the main plug off, this plug right here. And the way you get those off is that you have to go down in here and push against these little lips here. There's like a little piece of metal that sticks up from the unit, and you have to push that down so you can slide them out. I just used a piece of thin metal. So okay, let's get this back up in place here. Make sure the gasket and everything is good and lined up. That goes on. So let me screw these together. Get them started here before I crank on them. All right. Okay. One of the things you need to do is you need to put this neutral wire back in its little clip area there. And then right here, you can either feed that wire in behind or take a wire tie and hold it in place. We're going to see if it'll go in behind there. So let me unscrew that a little bit. I have a Phillips. right, so let's back this off just a hair. Get that out. Slip that wire in behind. And that should go in behind there just like that. And then we'll tighten that Phillips back up. And then I kind of like to bend these up just a little bit, those neutral, not much, just a little bit. Just a little bit more clearance in there. And then again, the rubber grommet on this side for the wiring can be shoved into place. Okay, and then we just have to feed the wiring through there. Okay, there's the wire. So I guess that kind of finishes this episode on rebuilding starters. If there's any comments or questions, you know, you can put them in the comment section below, or you can send them to my email address at tmiyagi@hotmail.com. And if you've liked this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget that ringy-dingy button over there for the next episode coming up. So this is Mr. Miyagi saying, you be safe out there, and hope to see you on the road. Ciao.